Welcome to Attic Raiders Retro Reviews, where today we're going back to the 80s, a time when arcades ruled the malls and alien blasting fun came in garishly illustrated wooden cabinets, a time when neon was the norm and the most strenuous side-scroller around was Defender. The Defender board game was released by Milton Bradley in 1983, based on the video game of the same name, which had been developed by Williams Electronics and released in arcades 2 years earlier in 1981. The Defender arcade game was one of the first ever horizontally side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups to hit the market and was hugely popular, with subsequent releases for the Atari, ColecoVision and Commodore 64 among others. In the video game, players pilot a spaceship defending astronauts on the surface of a mountainous planet from alien invaders hell-bent on capturing them and transforming them into marauding mutants. Defenders was hard, with average time per play lasting less than a pitiful 37 seconds, but gamers loved it, and Milton Bradley wanted some of that sweet, sweet cash. Released as part of their 81 to 83 run of arcade game conversions, Defender joined the likes of Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Centipede and Berserk in cardboard form. Defender is a two-player game for ages 7 to 14 and works hard to emulate its video game progenitor, with players working against each other to protect the humanoids from capture and destroy the ever-increasing alien horde, scoring points for every enemy defeated. As you can see, unlike the original Defender's arcade cabinet and MB's other US arcade-based board games, Defender's artwork is sorely lacking, with the box featuring nothing but the game's logo and some kind of star or planet. The main focus being photographs of the actual game itself, showing off the many 3D plastic pieces, which admittedly is this game's strongest selling point. Though if you're going to show off a game so much on the cover, at least set it up right. At no point should there be more than 2 Defender ships of the same colour in play, and scorecards should always have 2 pegs in each. But more on the rules later. The arcade version has been voted one of the top 50 games of all time by numerous games magazines throughout the decades. But how does the Defender board game compare? Is it just as good, or should it be eradicated by extraterrestrial terrors? Let's take a closer look and find out. The game comes with 12 plastic Defender ships, 6 yellow and 6 red. The Defender ship in the arcade game obviously is only ever seen in side profile, so it's quite interesting to see a 3-dimensional interpretation of the ship, and obviously quite a bit of artistic license has had to go into these. We've got 12 black plastic bombers, 6 yellow plastic landers, 6 red plastic humanoids, and each one of these features a mutant sticker on the bottom, 2 cardboard scorecards, 8 yellow plastic scoring pegs. Obviously I've only got 4 here, but this is all you need to play the game, the others are all spares. 10 scanner cards, which each feature how you're going to set up the board, where you're going to put landers, bombers and humanoids according to the different grid references. A cardboard spinner card, which tells you what you're going to do on your go, either moving a lander, moving a defender, activating a scatter bomb, moving a mutant or a bomber, or taking a scanner card. And obviously these are different sizes, so you're much more likely to move a defender than you are, say, to activate a scatter bomb. And the board itself is this nice thick half-folded cardboard which opens up to give us our playing surface. We're going to be using grid references in this game, so we've got 1 to 10 down the side here and A to J across the top. To set up the game, each player is going to take their 6 Defender ships, place 2 of them on their side of the board down in the starting space here, and the other 4 are going to go in their docking area at the side of the board, each one just sitting on top of the Defender silhouette. With the ships all set up, we're going to take our scanner cards, make sure that they are shuffled up, take the top 3 of those, get the rest of them and place them at the side of the board, and these are going to tell us how we are going to set up all of our pieces on the board here. So for example, on this one we're going to have a lander at space 1C, so we're looking for 1C, that's going to go over here. We're going to have a bomber at 1F, so we take our bomber, we're at 1F over here, and we've got another one at 7A, So we're going to take our other bomber, and that's going to go at 7A here. And then we've got a humanoid at 9J. So we take our humanoid, we look for 9J, which is going to be way over here. And we're going to do that, making sure that all 3 of those cards get set up. Once everything's in place, your used cards go in a discard pile at the side of the board. And finally, each player gets a scoring card and 2 scoring pegs. The scoring pegs start off at 0-0 down the bottom here, and as you go through the game, this is going to be your 1s or units here, and this is your 10s. So you're going to score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Once you get to 9, you go to 10 there, and then you continue, and then for example that would be 58. So this is just keeping track of your score throughout the game. The object of the game then is to move your defenders around the board, trying to destroy as many of the alien menace as you possibly can, and also to try and destroy your opponent's defender pieces. Each time you destroy something, you're going to get a certain number of points depending on what kind of piece that is, and you're going to tally them up on your scoreboard. Once all 6 of your opponent's defender ships are destroyed, then that's the end of the game, and whoever's got the most points at that point is the winner. So to determine how you're going to move around during the game, each player is going to take it in turn, spinning the spinner and doing whatever it lands on. If you spin move mutant or bomber, then you've got your choice of moving either of them if they're both on the board. Bombers can move straight lines any distance but only along diagonals, and their job is to move and try to destroy defenders. If they land on a defender, the defender is destroyed, is removed from the board, and is replaced at the starting position with another ship from the docking area. Defender ships that are on the initial starting space are safe and cannot be destroyed by anything. If you're moving a mutant, they can move any distance, left, right, backwards, forwards, or along the diagonals, and again their job is also to destroy defenders. If you spin move lander, then you're going to take one of the lander pieces on the board and you're going to move it to try to either capture a humanoid or destroy a defender. Now landers are the only piece on the board which can move in 2 directions in the same turn. They can't move diagonally, but they can move in all the other directions and can swap directions partway through that move. So they could either move like this to destroy a defender, or they could move in order to capture a humanoid being placed over the top of it. Once a lander's captured a humanoid, then on subsequent turns when you spin move lander, you can start trying to move this lander up towards the top of the board in order to turn that humanoid into a mutant. Landers with captured humanoids can only move vertically upwards towards the mountains here, but they can't pass over the top of a piece which is in their way. So they're going to have to wait until these pieces have moved during the game out of the way so that they can get eventually right up to this top line here. When a lander gets a kidnapped humanoid to the top of the board, then you get 1 point for destroying that lander, which just goes back into the pool in the box, and that humanoid is turned into a mutant, which can then be moved subsequently in the rest of the game. If you spin move defender, then you can take one of your defender ships and move it to take out one of the alien menaces or your opponent's defender. Defenders can move as far as they like in any direction in a straight line, either forward, backwards, left, right, or diagonal. If you destroy one of your opponent's defenders, you don't get any points for it, but they are 1 ship less, and so you're closer to that finishing point of them losing all 6 ships. If you destroy a lander, you get 1 point. If you destroy a lander which contains a kidnapped humanoid, you get 3 points. If you destroy a mutant, you get 2 points. And if you destroy a bomber, you get 1 point. There are no points for destroying humanoids. And of course, like all the other pieces, when you're moving in a straight line, you can't move past or over another piece. If you spin scatter bomb, then you can choose one of your defenders and all of the pieces in the 8 adjoining squares around it are all destroyed, and you collect the points for each of those pieces. If you spin take scanner card, then like at the start of the game when we set up the board, you take the top card and you place down all of these things onto the board here. If however, like this one where we've got the lander at 5D, at 5D I've already got a lander here, so I cannot place another one, so that simply just doesn't get placed onto the board. Eventually, one of the player's last ships will be destroyed, and when that happens, the game is over. You look at your scores and you see who is the winner. Now, throughout this, I have had these scorecards sitting at the side of the board, but you're not supposed to do that. These should be kept hidden in secret so that you don't actually know who has got the highest score until right at the very end of the game. But whoever has scored the most, so in this case we've got 65 to 57, so this player here would win the game. Defender's plastic playing pieces are the game's big draw, with a lot of artistic interpretation obviously having to be used to convert a handful of pixels representing side profile only objects into fully realised three-dimensional designs. I think they've done a rather admirable job, to be honest, given the manufacturing limitations of the time and budgetary constraints. They're not the prettiest miniatures, but they do the job. If we're comparing the board game to the arcade game it's based on, then some odd inconsistencies crop up. The bombers in the board game don't bomb, whereas in the arcade version they leave behind floating mines which explode on impact. Now that would be tricky to do in a board game given that you're moving a lot slower and could just easily avoid those squares where mines were left, but the designers could have simply picked a different name, calling them baiters or swarmers, in which case they would have been much more akin to their arcade counterparts. The game board also shows the arcade's famous mountain range at the top rather than at the bottom, instead opting for the lower cityscape which appeared in the 1982 Atari 2600 home port. There are a lot of different pieces which move differently and are worth different numbers of points, but the instructions are pretty well explained in this area with a very helpful table. As far as gameplay goes, the board game does replicate the arcade version as best it can, taking into account the constraints of being a two-player game with all the enemies being player controlled. The lander does prove a bit problematic, however, in that as a piece it's rather too powerful to carry out its main function. What I mean by that is that as it has the ability to change directions in the same turn, it's actually more powerful than any other piece, meaning that you can use it to destroy opponents' defenders from almost any position on the board. So you're much more likely to do that rather than use it to capture a humanoid, though landers with captured humanoids are worth the most if destroyed. If a lander has captured a humanoid, it's suddenly the most valuable piece on the board, so given the choice when you spin Move Lander, why would you move one towards the top of the board to create a mutant, only giving yourself 1 point and creating a new enemy to fight, instead of leaving it so that you can destroy it later and get 3 points? It just means that mutants don't really show up on the board all that often during games. To rectify this, perhaps some kind of AI system for landers could be created, or just have that landers always have to move to target humanoids and try to create mutants, instead of giving the choice of attacking defenders with them. Which brings us to an interesting point: to show the scorecard or not. Having that the winner is not just the first person to destroy all 6 of their opponent's ships, but that they also have to have the highest score when all 6 defenders are destroyed, puts an interesting wrinkle in gameplay strategy. Because you could still win the game even if your opponent destroys all your defenders first. This makes an interesting choice. When do you destroy your opponent's ships and end the game? Or do you just leave them alone and rack up your own high score? But the game does have to end sometime, so somebody is going to have to wipe out the other first. According to the rules, you should keep your scorecard hidden throughout the game, only revealing your score at the end, which makes you question at every point, am I ahead? Should I destroy that unprotected defender with a lander now, or use it to capture a humanoid, which could give me more points if I destroy it later? It's an interesting tension. However, if you ignore the instructions and deliberately have scorecards shown at all times, you can think more tactically and plan exactly when you want to try to end the game, with you ahead on points preferably. It makes for a whole different way of working and introduces a lot more strategy into gameplay. So, what do you think? Show the scorecards or keep them hidden? Let me know in the comments below. Overall, Defender is a pretty good game, which does its best to replicate the arcade version, albeit without the frantic pace and pressure of the original. There's a fair number of arcade-based board games from the 80s, and this is surely one of the better ones. Well, I hope you like what you've seen here today. If you have, please remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll see you next time with more vintage board games on Attic Raiders Retro Reviews.